everyone. I know it's been a couple of weeks since I've seen all of your faces as we've been moving away from doing these weekly, kind of figuring out our right cadence of whether we're on Instagram Live or whether we're doing these types of Zoom events. I miss y'all and I miss seeing all your faces. So this is always something for me that very selfishly, I like doing these because I like to see all of you and to be able to see the great progress that you are making and investing in yourselves. Wise Women Wednesdays is a great platform for us to be able to connect with amazing women leaders for our community to understand their version of how they've been able to make their journey successful, and how women can be seen as women and not just as business owners or leaders or moms or whatever role that we have placed on us, but that we can take a step back and look at each other objectively as other women and learn how investing in ourselves can really unleash maximum potential. And so today, just a few rules of the road before we get in. First, please go on mute if you are not Morgan or myself. I appreciate it, just so we can be respectful of her and her background, and any background music doesn't get distracting. As well as if you've got anything that you want to ask or engage with, please put it into the chat. We can go off of mute if, once we open for Q&A. But like I said, this is the time for us to be able to just soak it all in and understand more about what we can learn today and how we can catalyze our own potential. So I am just so thrilled to welcome Morgan. She is not only a woman to watch, but she's really established herself here in the Midwest as being a leader for women and supporting, not only being a role model for women, but she's also moved into this space where she is taking on the accountability and her calling of catalyzing the potential of women, and being able to showcase how it's possible to market yourself and show up as your best self, but that also you can be powerful and pretty. And that term is so interesting because it's, I think for me, there's such a tension in that sometimes when it comes to standing for what you want and what you need. And the double bind for women is so challenging as we think about how to show up as our whole selves. And also what it means to show up as our whole selves and asking for what we want. So today, it's all conversational. It's intended to be inspirational. This isn't just Morgan sharing, but really, if you've got things that you want to share, I highly encourage that you put them in the chat. And then at the end of this, we'll save some time for some dialogue and discussion and talk about some wins that we've had as a group. So just being able to share some things you're really excited about coming up, and being able to celebrate that with you. Knowing that, it's hump day. We're midweek. I want to hear about what's going on. So, Morgan, thank you so much for joining us today. I'd love for you to dive in.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me. Thank you. Okay. This is Ralph. He won't let me be great. So if you see his little head or tail pop up, or else he'll just start barking at me. He wasn't paying me any mind until I hopped on this Zoom. He was sitting in his little bed. So this is Ralph. But thank you, Stevie, for having me. Thank you, Nori. I'm happy to be here. Again, my name is Morgan A. Owens, born and raised here in Cincinnati, Ohio. But actually, this is the longest I've been home in years. So I'm kind of like scratching to start traveling again and spreading my sparkle. I'm not sure if you guys have read my bio or, read about me, but I do the most. People always ask me, what do you do? I'm like, I do the most. My very first business I started 6 years ago. It's called Curvy Cardio. And really, Curvy Cardio saved my life. And I tell people that because I struggled with weight all my life. Like all of us women, we struggle every day with it. But growing up, I really struggled with that self-confidence piece of myself. And finally, at age 27, I decided to love my body and myself no matter what. And it was a conscious decision. So Curvy Cardio was born because I wanted other women to get healthy from the inside out through fitness, right? I wanted to make a change. I wanted to also inspire my own community who suffers the most from, heart disease and other health issues to come to a safe space where, the instructor is working on her self journey. I often tell my clients, I know y'all cussing me out right now, but I'm cussing myself out too. Like I just taught class last night and my back is hurting. I'm like, oh Lord, I can't do what I used to do at 34. So that was been a blessing. And then I launched my second business when I started my corporate journey. My corporate background is in marketing, branding, diversity, and inclusion. I left TriHealth almost 3 years ago to become a full-time entrepreneur. And during that time in corporate, I really took a notice that I was the only one in the room at times. So not only a woman, but often a Black woman, but also a millennial. And as a diversity and inclusion consultant, the only way up was to have my boss's role. And so I said, there must be more. There must be more out here. There must be more resources. There must be other women who feel the same way as I do. So I launched the Morgan A. Owens brand to really help women and minority women feel comfortable in their own skins, not only in corporate, but also as entrepreneurs, right? And that was almost 4 years ago. So entrepreneurship had just started really popping and people were launching their side hustles. But oftentimes people in my own community didn't have the same resources and tools or affordability that I learned in corporate, such as marketing, branding, communications, how to legally start your business. And so I saw the need and that's how that started. And then also along the way, I am an author. I have a book called Finding My Sparkle. And that is my story through low self-esteem and body image issues, like I said, until I was 27 years old. So I attached my self-worth with how people perceive me to be, how people wanted me to be. But I just wasn't living life to my fullest because of that, right? And like I said, at 27, something just came over me. I think I just got out of a horrible relationship and I said, what's the common denominator here, right? If I'm in a horrible, toxic relationship, if I'm in a job that I really don't like, if I'm not happy with, my health, my body, sometimes we have to take that hard look in the mirror and say, who's the common denominator? And it's like, it's you, sis, right? Like all men can't be, horrible. Your job can't, be holding you back. It's ultimately you. So I had to figure out, what truly made Morgan happy. And that was accepting myself, which as women, we have a hard time doing, right? Accepting ourselves, accepting our flaws, but loving them as beautifully, flawed as it is, right? And so that's where that term professional pretty came from, being able to still get the job done, get whatever goals that we want to accomplish, but still remaining pretty from the inside out, right? Not necessarily from the outside, even though we cute, right? We can still rock some heels and a bright lip and get the job done, right? But that's where that really came from. And so Finding My Sparkle has really opened doors that I never imagined or never even knew existed, right? Who knew that sharing my story would take me on, pre-COVID, a national book tour sponsored by P&G Beauty. So my Black is Beautiful, Pantene Gold series. And I tell people all the time, I'm just a girl from Cincinnati who didn't know my self-worth, didn't know my confidence until I decided, to love myself no matter what. And I speak in the school to young girls and I tell them, I know that sounds corny, self-love, but really, when I decided to love myself, my corporate career took off, right? I was no longer stuck in a job that I felt, I wasn't going to grow. And then my businesses took off. I started getting opportunities, like I said, that I never knew existed. My confidence took off because, as you know, as an entrepreneur, as a woman in corporate, you have to have tough skin because we're faced with so many obstacles, so many issues every day, so many no's, so many ignores, so many, door that slammed in your face. So you have to have that inner self-esteem to keep going. And so finding my sparkle, like I said, has opened so many doors. It's taken me so many places. It's led me here to speak to you all on Wise Woman Wednesdays. But it's also, opened opportunities such as me now having to pivot and lean on really my blog. So I launched a blog at the end of February called Professional Pretty, which is also my trademark. So you see that a lot, Professional Pretty. I'm going to use that because I paid good money for that trademark. So you're going to see that everywhere. So Professional Pretty is really all about helping women find their sparkle through beauty, fashion, lifestyle posts. I'm very transparent. I've always been. I share about, my current weight loss journey again. I got comfortable in a past relationship. I stopped teaching curvy cardio because my other business took off, but that took a toll on my health where I depended on this would keep me going all day, coffee, and I wouldn't eat, right? So struggling to, get back to a healthier me. I share all about that. And then that has opened doors for me to now work with brands. So I've been working with a lot of beauty brands, a lot of, fashion, lifestyle, drink brands, simply from just pitching and, sharing my why. That's what I'm really all about, is sharing my why. I'm very, very passionate about, like Stevie said, empowering women to just go out and get it, right? I think, sometimes we are our own worst critics. We stop ourselves from being great because we think, oh, this is not the right time, or I need to talk to someone else to think about, what I should do. And I always tell people, stop listening to people who haven't been where you're trying to go, right? If you're trying to go to the mountaintop and you're asking someone who hasn't even, climbed a small hill, why are you asking their advice? You know what I mean? And plus that part, I tell people all the time, I'm going to be a face of a national beauty campaign. I speak it out all the time. You have to affirm yourself. People may look at me crazy, but I'm like, just watch and see. I love those Facebook memories because, 2 years ago, I put on Facebook that I was going to Essence Fest. I said, I don't know what I'm going to be doing. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but this time next year, I will be there. And then a year later, guess where I was, y'all? Essence Fest. A brand sent me there to just take over their Instagram, a beauty brand. And I had completely forgot that I put that on Facebook. But when it came up in my memories a year later, I'm an ugly crier and I'm a Pisces. So I just started crying because, who would have thunk it? Like, we have these big dreams, these big aspirations, and sometimes we talk ourselves out of it. Like I said, I'm just a girl from Cincinnati. I didn't know anyone at Essence Fest. I didn't know anyone at this beauty brand that year. But guess what? A year later, I was there. I got flued out, y'all. I got flued out to New Orleans. And, I manifested, this year that I would be there, again. But of course, COVID wanted to ruin a girl's manifestations. Yes, Skyla, wanted to ruin it, but best believe I'm going to be back at Essence doing something big. Main point that I really want to stress is, as women, we have to walk in our purpose and our passion. Yes, imposter syndrome. We have to walk in our purpose and our passion. Even if no one else believes it, you have to believe it. Because when I wanted to be a full-time entrepreneur, so many people were telling me, why do you want to do that? You have a great job. It's flexible. And I loved my corporate job. It's flexible. Why do you want to do that? And I said, you know what? I'll never know how far I can fly if I don't jump, right? If I don't make that leap. And a lot of people didn't understand. A lot of people, even when I launched my first workshop and I called it Babes in Business, they're like, what is going on here? Like, why do you want to do that? I don't understand. You want to empower women to do what? I'm like, I sure do. And it's worked out for me so far just because I am confident in that. And I lead every day with purpose. Because I know if we have fellow entrepreneurs in here, you don't start a business wanting to get money because, honey, I I wish that I led with money every day, but the money will come if you lead with purpose first. And it's just been an absolute amazing journey for me. Um, so yeah. Um, so Stevie, I know I said a mouthful. I told you I had my coffee
This
today.
is such an awesome discussion because I think what you're speaking to is so relevant in terms of how women, I think today, let's talk about pre-COVID for a second, because I feel like there's like a BC and then an AD and then like a pre-post COVID too
Right.
going on.
Right.
I feel like pre-COVID, we knew that there were challenges and barriers that existed, right? And there are people who can you guys hear me okay? Is my connection all right? Okay. Um, we knew that there are challenges and barriers for women, but I think that as we think about, like I said, the double bind and navigating, how we show up, sometimes we are worried about other people's perception of us and how people, when we walk into a room, how people are going to consume us. And we worry so much about that we talk ourselves out of our own validity, I guess, of taking up space. And again, I think that there's something that you're hitting on that had not really occurred to me, in the sense that I have already known that really we can't control how people view us, right? Like they've already got their own set of biases and things that they might not even be aware of. But talk to me a little bit when you help to coach women in this space of how they own their own worth, and they do show up, how they can show up in rooms where they might be onlys, in particular, like
Right.
as a Black woman showing up, with senior leadership in health systems, which I'm not shy about talking about my philosophy on healthcare, right? And how I think that there's, especially in healthcare, a lot of opportunity when it comes to, leadership and showing up in places like that. Like, how do you own yourself and show up, but also like still influence and lean into that? And like, I don't know, I'm sure you've been in that position before so many times, and you've obviously been successful.
Yeah. I mean, so definitely working at TriHealth, it was very bland, it was very bland. And then here I come, right? One day I might wear, a wig. The next day I might have braids. The next day I might wear my hair straight, curly. And people were always so thrown off about it. I'm like, what? Even my headshot. So at TriHealth, you go and with security and take a headshot. I was like, no, this headshot is horrible. So I actually got my own headshot taken, and I was like this, like, like sassy. So like I said, at 27, I just decided, like, this is me. And, I know, first of all, my work speaks for itself.
Yeah.
So no matter how I look, and it wasn't like I was coming in TriHealth looking all crazy, like I was just coming from the club or something. I was still professional, but I still wore color. Where at TriHealth, everyone wear, navy and blue and drabness. Everyone except the diversity and inclusion girls, right?
Yeah.
But I still showed up as me, and I thought it was a good chance to just open up conversation too. Because a lot of people, they would automatically assume like I was an admin, which is fine, or I was this and that, until they heard I was a diversity inclusion consultant, right? And then they would treat me differently.
Yeah.
And I've always had this, Stevie, because my father is well known in Cincinnati. So people would meet me and then they would say, oh, I didn't know your dad was Dr. Odell Owens. I said, well, does it make a difference? I'm like, or they started treating me differently. And I'd be like, you're not about to treat me differently, right? And so I always had to navigate that, right? People assuming that they could treat me one way, but then realize, oh, she's credible. Oh, she's intelligent. Oh, she has a great this and that. I'm like, why should it matter? Right? My father always taught me to treat the CEO the same way you treat the janitor, because you never know who you're going to need going up and going back down, right? And so I've always kept that philosophy with me, that, you treat people how you want to be treated, no matter what, no matter even if you learn the title. And actually, that's how I've gained my greatest opportunities, by just treating people like people. The whole PNG beauty thing, I had no idea. I talked to someone at a conference. I had no idea she was the VP of the agency that repped My Black is Beautiful. I just went up to her as a person and said, oh my God, girl, you look cute. I love your shoes. I love your bag. And we started an authentic conversation. And then she let me know who she was. And so that led to an opportunity. And so I think when I step into those rooms where I am the only one, I'm just myself. You know, people might be shy or, you know, weary to talk to me, but I'll come up to them, right? Because I have that self-love, that self-esteem now. I say, hi, I'm Morgan Owens. I do this, this, and this. I always love it too when you know, they used to say, well, who do you work for? I'm like, oh, I work for myself, actually. You know what I mean? So when you step into rooms, and if you're the only one, I've changed my mindset to love it, right? Before I would have been scared. Before I would have been like, oh my gosh, can you connect me to this person? Or can you introduce me? But I absolutely love it because I stand out, because people want to know who I am, what do I do? And that's a perfect opportunity to do that. So yes, put me in that room of all white men, older white men in, you know, a C-suite, and I will wow them with my sparkle, my intellect, and I will also, you know, break down some of their implicit bias that they may have when they look at me and think, oh, you know, she must do this, but really that's not the case at all. So I welcome it.
That's amazing, because I think that it really is a testament to the journey that you've been on of like radical self-acceptance, right? Of like this, and I think also showing like respecting yourself more than you like respect like the judgment, potential judgment, right? And also I think having some faith in people. Like I love your optimism that like when people know, they get to know me, like they're gonna love me. And I actually like, and here's the thing is like, I think that so much of that imposter syndrome is about like, we go down this rabbit hole of like all the what ifs and all the bad, and we kind of like just assume that there's going to be barriers and obstacles. And I think because there have been in the past, but it says that gentle reframe of like, what would be possible if that wasn't the case, or that wasn't true, or if I could, like, if I was enough, and my enoughness actually could influence other people. So that's amazing.
Yeah, and I think it definitely takes practice. Like I'm on here, you know, saying this, but it definitely took work, and it still does. You know, I still give myself when I enter rooms that are unknown, or even now, you know, pitching to brands who I think need more diversity in their feed, in their marketing. You know, it takes a pep talk, because you never know how you're going to, like you said, be perceived, but also helps to have an eye too, if you really need it. Like before, I would ask someone to give me, so that helps as well. If you have an ally that can speak you up and put you in rooms that you never knew that even existed as well.
Oh, and I love that. And so I want to talk a little bit about your let's start with where you started on Curvy Cardio, because I want to talk about that, and then I want to get to like where you're building now. So let's go way back. You said 6 years ago, right? And you started Curvy Cardio. I want to talk about when you decided that that was going to be the thing that you did, and you just leaned into it, and more about, like, you talked about the money will come. And I know that Curvy Cardio is how I first learned about you, because I think that that's where I started to recognize. I was working on a CoverGirl, and then I moved into Always, and I was working on Always Discreet. And I think that that's where when I was working on Always, that's where I had learned about you, because we were talking about like that radical acceptance of being a woman, and that it's a positive thing, and that like how you can really be powerful with like when you walk into a room of like all white old men, like that's actually a superpower, that you get the privilege and opportunity to like barrier bust. And like I think that when I think about how I first came upon you, I was like, this is like so different. Like this is a different conversation. And at the time, I know a lot of people, you've had a lot of Imitation is the best form of flattery, I think, right? You've had a lot of people kind of come after you in doing this. But I just want to talk about your mindset for a second. Like when you made the decision to do the leap and really put yourself out there, what was that like? And like, how did you kind of navigate a lot of that? Because I'm sure in the beginning, this radical acceptance wasn't as easy as it might be today, now, 8 years later.
Yeah. So when I graduated college in '08, the recession hit. So I ended up working 4 jobs at once because I've never been ashamed to work because I like nice things. And so as a typical college graduate, I wanted to move out of the house. Now I'm trying to move back, y'all. I mean, I'm like, can I come back like rent free? They're like, nope. So I wanted to move out. I wanted my own space. I wanted to buy things that I wanted to buy. So I literally worked 4 jobs. Plus, I would go on these interviews and they would say, well, you don't have any experience. So I'm like, how am I supposed to get experience if I just graduated college? And then I was also, applying to jobs, entry-level jobs that people with their masters and above were applying for because the recession had hit. Many people had lost their jobs. And so I did that for 2 years. And then so my weight really took a toll because literally I was working at 7 a.m. till 9 o'clock at night, life of the fast food, not really sleeping, not really getting, what I needed to do to take care of me. So at the end of those 2 years, I finally got a full-time job, a big girl job, a 9 to 5 at Cincinnati State in their marketing department. And I went to my friend's wedding and a friend had actually gifted her a Zumba class. And so I was like, oh, I could do this. I could be a Zumba instructor and make some, side hustle money, right? And so I did that for 2 years and my body completely changed. On top of that, I started doing Weight Watchers at Cincinnati State because they offered like an incentive, like they would pay you like $300 you get back. And I'm like, again, Morgan like money. So I was like, okay, I can lose weight. I can learn about how to eat healthy and get my money back. Sign me up, right? And so during that time when my body was changing, I felt certain things changed within me, like, accepting myself, like I said, no matter what. And so I was like, you know what? Zumba is really saturated and a lot of minority women, like, they didn't really get a lot of that choreography. So I was like, you know what? Let me start my own thing and let me make it something of my own. And so I was like, okay, I'm curvy and we doing cardio. So let's call it curvy cardio, right? And like I said, back then, Black women weren't really working out like they are now. It wasn't really trendy. It really wasn't a thing. We have, barriers like we didn't want to sweat our hair out. We were taking care of everyone else except ourselves. We didn't really make time for our health. And, paying for classes wasn't really, the top priority in my community. And so Curvy Cardio was born and I started sharing my journey on social media. So before, I was straight catfishing people, okay? I would do like the head, like this shot only. I would never take full body pictures. I was just too ashamed of how I look. People would tag me in pictures. I'd be like, untag, don't allow people to tag me on social media. But then I started sharing my before and afters. Not because I wanted my ex-boyfriends to see how good I looked, a little bit, but I wanted to share with my community that, getting healthy is not anything to be ashamed of, right? Sharing your weight loss struggle is nothing to be ashamed of. And when I started doing that, I had women that started inboxing me and saying, oh my God, Morgan, I never thought you felt like this. I feel like this too. I mean, it was just beautiful. People that I never imagined were inboxing me, telling me that they've struggled with their weight. They would never, have the courage to share what I was starting to share on social media. And oftentimes my weight was tied to my self-esteem. Like I said, I was, not taking care of my health because I didn't love myself. I wasn't taking care of my health because I was in these toxic relationships that I turned to eating or, something else or, drinking, partying on the weekends. I was a party girl. So, I was sharing, really being transparent. And people really took to that. And then my class is starting just to like pop out of control. I remember I started with maybe like 1, 2, 5 people. I started having classes that were like 45 deep. I mean, women that came early to save their spot and was ready to fight people over if their spot was taken. I mean, it was just a beautiful thing. And that opened so many doors. And then I started doing workshops in schools for young girls. A lot of people didn't know that. Like I said, I led with purpose. So that wasn't something that I put on social media. That was something just for me, that I did workshops in schools teaching girls about healthy eating, body image, and then have the girls come up with their own routines and teach me. I would do a cardio mock for 2, 3 because it's young, right? Kids, mostly, CPS kids, there's food deserts, right? And then I worked in the school, so I would see kids like hot Cheetos over salad. I'm like, oh my Lord, this is not what you need to do, right? But no one was there to teach them nutrition. No one was there to teach them, properly how to, stay active, because now they have social media and video games and other distractions. So that was really the ever growing thing of curvy cardio. And yes, people started to steal my little secret sauce, but they tried. You can try, but you don't have my story. And that was everything about curvy cardio. People would inbox me saying, oh, have you seen this? So and so is doing this like you. I'm like, okay. I always thought what God has for me is meant for me. And so I started telling people to stop sending me that stuff. Like, I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. What I do is for me, and curvy cardio's mission values is my story, and no one can really take my story. So here we are 6 years later. I tried to stop teaching curvy cardio, but my clients won't let me. I've tried to teach other people to be instructors, and they weren't having that. And so now I'm back teaching classes after, during COVID, 4 days a week. So it's really been a blessing that curvy cardio has been around so long, and people won't let me stop.
I think it's so powerful. By the way, I got chills when you said, they tried to steal my secret sauce, but like the most important thing is like, they don't have my story. And I think that that is the piece of like the good, the bad, like you have to have that strife. You've got to have that struggle in order to be able to even be able to have this wild success, I think. And that's the piece of it. Like, people haven't gone through that journey. And that's the part that when you try to create something that's inauthentic to who you are, it doesn't work. It has to be at the core and root of who you are. And I think that for me takes me to this next space of, I love that you went through that journey, because it helped you. At Wise Wellness Guild, we are all about establishing a foundation of whole self wellness so you can go and be successful and achieve your peak performance in all aspects. And I think that your story started with you. It starts with you and your, understanding what you need. And if you see, you recognize that your story is unique, but like the challenges that you face maybe aren't unique, by being vulnerable and sharing your challenges, right? And getting that feedback and understanding that, wow, like it really isn't just like my struggle, but it's our struggle as women, or as a Black community, or as like there's so much more than just me. Like, it's about the we. And when you get to the we and you try to put yourself out there, I think as a business owner, and being vulnerable allows to open up that dialogue, but it also provides like an opportunity, a business opportunity, I think, and it provides an opportunity for your success. So you have to risk your ego. You have to risk failure. You have to risk so much, but what's on the other side of that, as we kind of, the other side of the mountain, is an immense amount of opportunity that like you just have to put it out there. And I think that the foundation of wellness allowed for you to put yourself out there, because you knew that if you got, sucker punched, like you could take it and, you were strong enough to take it. But I think that talk about the next phase of your journey, which is like that you were able to build on that success, which is getting into branding and consulting and kind of understanding the opportunity. And I think that um, I, I think that the work that you do is imperative and crucial. But I love that you've also said that this is a for-profit business. And that is something that I like. I talk about this all the time, that like people always ask me if I'm a nonprofit. From one of my mentors, who's an old white man who I love dearly, on Friday, I got off of the phone with him and I was like, it's here it is again. He was like, I think you'd have more success if this was a nonprofit. I think you'd get more. And I'm like, this is a for-profit business, because the expectation is that we as women, anything that it has social good should be free. And that is not my philosophy at all. I think that there's absolutely business opportunity in so much of what we're doing. And the reason why we as women, we put 90% of our income back into the economy. We literally build communities. And if I'm not able to pay the people that work for me the amount that I want to pay them, and if I'm not stimulating other businesses along as I'm building this, like, what am I doing? And so I would love to like hear your philosophy on this, because I love that you talk about money, because it's so taboo and it's just really empowering. Like, I'm feeling like very like strong about this right now. This is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, we need money to live, right?
Yeah.
I feel as if like men talk about money all the time like it's nothing. And as women, if we talk about money, we're bragging or we're showing off, but we need to get paid too. And so I've got hit with that numerous times too, like especially from my dad. He's like, you need a nonprofit. I'm like, okay, is your background in women? Of course, I know you were a woman's doctor, but do you know about women in business? I'm like, okay, let me do this, Dad. Let me do this, right? Which I love my daddy, but I'm like, let me handle this one. So when I launched MAO Brands and I was doing workshops, was doing consulting, I definitely charged, but I definitely knew that as entrepreneurs, we don't really have a lot of money to spend sometimes, but that shouldn't be a reason why we can't have access to resources and other tools to be great. So I actually would pitch to corporations to underwrite my whole year so I could offer workshops for $40, $20. I don't think I had anything more than $100, even my conference. And I think, back then, that was like 4 or 5 years ago, that was very innovative. And I said, okay, well, if you want to support minorities, you want to support women in business, then let's write a check, right? Coming from corporate, I knew, corporations had funds for this kind of stuff because I would see it come across my desk working in diversity and inclusion. And I'm like, we gave how much to these people every year? You know what I mean? So I found that opportunity in that. And, corporations writing a $2,500, $5,000 check is nothing, right? It's a drop in the bucket. And it wasn't like I was asking for, $500,000 or whatever, which I should looking back. But, if I could get a corporation to sponsor my bigger events, or my brand launch or my brand anniversary party, then I can, continue offering courses, things for people who maybe can't afford a direct one-on-one with me, right? So I have, like a workbook that's $20, or, an ebook that's $9, or like I said, a workshop that would be $20 or $40. It just depends. Because like I said, I always kept in mind that, income shouldn't be a barrier on why people can't be successful. Even in curvy cardio, people would tell me all the time, Morgan, I can't continue paying, and it was only $5, $7 a class. And at first I was like, okay, people can't afford $5 or $7, but I don't know people's stories, right? And I'm so quick to think, okay, you can't really afford $5, but some people really couldn't afford $5. That $5 could go towards their students, their kids' lunch or something else. Put less. And so I would have people sponsor people, right? I would have UC Health came in and underwritten a whole challenge that I did so people could still, do it and not have, money be a reason why they can't get healthy. Because that's the first thing to go, right? And so I felt it was very important to just give people a leg up on what I learned in corporate. Tri Health was absolutely amazing by sending me to all these personal development classes, conferences. But I know I couldn't afford, a $5,000 conference, the flight, the hotel, the food, just to learn gems that I never knew were gems, right? And also being in those rooms where I was the only one of color. So I felt, a responsibility to bring that information back to my own community. And I think oftentimes people always say, well, why do you share those resources? Why do you do this? Why do you do that? You need to charge more for what you've learned. And I said, you know what? I'm still good. You know what I mean? Like, I share in discernment. So if I want to share a tip for free, I'll do that. Because like I said before, what God has for me is meant for me. And so I don't feel like I'm, undercutting me or selling myself short, because God will put opportunities in front of me, like I said, that I never imagined. Just like, the book tour, just like now, being able to work with brands or other opportunities that I've never even imagined. So, and like I said, it's been instilled with me at an early age to always give back to your community. When I'm long gone, I want people to remember me as someone who made a difference, and not just someone who was a pretty face and blogged about, skincare and beauty things, but actually did things in my community to make a difference.
That's so amazing. And there's so many parallels, I think, that why people join this community. And as a business owner, as I was looking to pivot to, I will tell you that that's one of the things, one of the tenets of Wise Wellness Field is, first off, like, that wellness isn't just for wealthy white women. And I think we're starting to see that unfold a little bit with Goop right now, which everybody knows that, like, gosh, I love so much of the things that they do offer, but it's always been my struggle is that it's so unattainable. And like, it almost continues to perpetuate the challenges that we've had. I mean, I think for me growing up where I did, like, it's a lack of information and knowledge, but it's also a lack of empowerment, that like you're in control of your own body and your decisions, and like, don't just let things happen to you. And so I absolutely love that. And I think that there's another layer to this that when I think about like your journey of kind of getting to writing a book, and like what that kind of looks like in sharing that, your book tour is something that I want to get into a little bit of, how do you decide and how are you discerning about, like who you partner with, who you're, like, why P&G, like, because I think as a business owner on myself, I'm trying to be very thoughtful and choiceful about like who I align with, because it's a representation of me and my personal brand, but also my brand, and like how you're stepping into that, because your book is, I've never written a book, but I have heard that it is major and it is a really big investment of your time and all of that. So tell us more about that journey.
Yeah, so really, okay, so I wrote Finding My Sparkle because, well, first of all, my degree is in English creative writing, and I had no like inkling or want to even write a book, but in my entrepreneurship journey, I got so tired of people thinking they knew my story before I even was able to share it. So I also often say, what do I often say? Look, I forgot. So I often say, when people would come up, when I was sharing like my pictures from Curvy Cardio, right? There were some people that inboxed me, especially men, who would inbox me and say, oh, you're so pretty and your father's so-and-so. What kind of hard life did you have? And I said, first of all, you don't know me. You don't know my story. And so I'm like, you know what? Let me go ahead and write it. You know what I mean? It was more of a therapeutic thing. I only meant to launch it at my first conference for women to stop comparing my journey to theirs, because they only see what I wanted them to see, right? So in my book. I did write it crying. There were some part, and I thought I was going to write this book in like 6 months. I'm like, oh, this is easy. I'm gonna write my story. I'm good. But I found myself crying because things that I had suppressed would come back when I was starting to write, and I would have to step away from it sometimes for a couple weeks. And it really was, like I said, a form of therapy for me. Because what I really wanted people to know is, just because I didn't grow up like my parents, who, my dad's from the West End, my mom's from a little town in Richmond, Indiana. They both came from meager beginnings and just made a life that they, never expected, but gave me and my older brothers a life that they never had growing up. So yes, I went to private schools. Yes, I never worried about, where my next meal would come from, but that doesn't mean that I didn't suffer differently, right? And for me, it was that self-esteem. For me, it was my parents never knowing how, okay, yeah, I'm told you I'm a Pisces, I'm an ugly crier. But for me, they never knew, trying not to cry, y'all, because I beat my face today. They never knew how much I really didn't love myself, because I compared myself to my classmates. And, here I am. I've always had thick thighs. And if you know what my dad looks like, I always say I look like Odell with bangs in 6th grade. And that was not a good look. I'm so grateful that I look like my mother now, but but I really struggled inside. And what I wanted people to know is, I came from really a dark space in my life where, I didn't even want to be here in high school. I thought about taking my own life, and I thought about, how I would never be truly happy the way I was going. And the emotional is, I'm glad that I didn't, take that route. I'm glad that I, saw the other side. But when people would inbox me things like that, it was really hurtful. And it was really meaning on my success as well. Because for a long time, I didn't even want people to know who my father was, because I wanted to get things on my own merit. I've always been like that. I wanted to go to a college where no one knew me. I used to like hide my letters from Miami because my dad, you're going to go wherever sends you more money. And it's like, I wanted to go somewhere where no one knew me. I wouldn't follow the same footsteps as like my older brother went to Miami. And like I said, my dad is well known. I wanted to do things on my own. I've always been like that. And so I struggle with that. And so that's the whole reason why I wrote the book, to share how I truly found my sparkle. Because like I said, I didn't want other women to compare my journey through what they only saw or what they only knew of my family. And so sharing my story, sharing some embarrassing parts where sometimes even my parents didn't even know. I think I wrote that book when I was like 32. A lot of my close friends didn't even know certain things in the book, but like I said, living authentically, sharing what I wanted to share, because I didn't share everything. Now, some things y'all need to tell everybody, but the parts that I wanted to share have, like you said, open doors and aligning people like PNG Beauty, who stands for like, my Black is beautiful. I didn't think my Black was beautiful when I was, a little girl, because that's the way that I perceived it, but how I was treated sometimes. And so aligning myself, when I got that, I ran circles in my loft like Oprah. Like I was screaming, yelling. I was like, oh my God. Like that was a defining moment for me, to think of Morgan at age, 9, 10, not loving herself, not thinking she was worthy, not thinking she was good enough, thinking about that 14, 15-year-old Morgan who wanted to take her own life because she just thought, what's the point of it all? To now this 32-year-old, 33-year-old woman that, has her story sponsored by one of the biggest global beauty brands in the world that believes in my story, little old me. It was just amazing. So I definitely like to align myself, even now doing influencer work, with brands that value me as a Black woman, that values my mission of uplifting and empowering women and young girls to be their best selves authentically. And I have turned down opportunities from companies that I feel would compromise my audience's trust in me. So that's what I never want to do. Like I said, I like nice things, and I would have bought a nice thing with that money, but all money isn't good money. And so I'm very protective of my brand because I've worked so hard for it. I've literally fought for it my whole life. And I'd be damned if somebody ruins that. So yes, I am very discerning on who I work with and who I align myself with.
That I think that you just like summed up like everything kind of your strength for me is so inspiring because I think that and I would love to. I know we've talked about, you know, partnering on like a part two and a more extended kind of version. I think that what I'm really resonating with is like that this comparison that we do with other people about like we only put out there, you know, it's that one picture of like the tip of the iceberg and then all the things that you don't see. And we're comparing ourselves, and so many people talk about body image and like things you see, like that's we've heard that story before and we know that we do that. But I think it's also this there's a piece of being vulnerable too that you allow for people to connect on a deeper level. And for me, this past week in our newsletter, I wrote about a like on a body image story for myself that, you know, it took me back. I was in a situation that took me back to like 13-year-old Stevie, like when I was young and like dealing with my own kind of acceptance of the way that my body was and having my boyfriend's cousin at the time tell me that I had childbearing hips. And I'm like, that's disgusting now that I like look back, right? But you can't not being able to people look at me and think, oh, she's so confident and she's got her shit together, right? And like but you don't really, there's so much about that journey, again, that I said that you've been able to take and figure out how you own it and you love it unconditionally, you love it, and then you catalyze it to blaze a trail for other women and other people, really, not just women, but in my case, like I just focus there. So I think that that's just so incredibly inspiring, and like where it's led you to. I can see you in the Oprah moment, like, and here's the thing, it's like one tentpole of like so many other things in the future that are like you're manifesting. So that's awesome. And I wanna leave room if anybody else has other questions, or if they want to dive in and ask Morgan anything. I know I've had a conversation, but sorry, it's I'm like I've loved this.
Hey, Morgan.
Yes.
Hi, it's Laura Swolford, and I just wanted to tell you, thank you so much for your story today. I mean, you show such grace and generosity and giving of yourself at your age compared to how long it took me to begin to find some of that at my age. So your learning curve, I'm just amazed at your self-discovery and your journey and what you've made. I mean, really inspirational.
Thank you so much. And
where would I, well, it was just wonderful. Where would I find your book? Where can I?
Yeah, you can go on my website, morganaowens.com, and it's under Finding My Sparkle.
Okay, and where did you get that flower backdrop that you have behind you? I worked for a florist all through college, and I love that backdrop.
Yeah, so actually my friend did it. So it's styrofoam, and then these are like flowers from the dollar store that you just like stuck in there.
I love it.
I'm so extra, y'all. I have a flower wall in my house, and I'm actually about to move, so I'm like, I don't know how this is gonna work. And I actually have a flower wall hidden at my parents' house, so I need to go get that when I move. But thank you so much.
Yeah, just great.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else have any questions or any comments that you want to make? I know we have a few in the chat that have come in. So, anyone? All right. Well, Morgan, thank you so much for your time today. I will make sure that everything as a part of this recap is put in with your website, and making sure that we are linking so people can get a hold of your book. Make sure that you follow her on Instagram. Your content is like what I aspire to get to. I mean, it is like so beautiful and fantastic and chic, and I think that the work that you're doing is so important and starting so many important conversations about how to advance women. I'm really excited to continue to partner with you on this and understand more about how we can continue to bring content for women to stay inspired, and your story is just like the best. So I really, really appreciate it. And does anybody have any wins that they want to share from the week, or anything that you're really excited about before we sign off? Anyone?
Hey, Olivia. Love you too. I see Olivia in the chat.
Olivia, this is Olivia's first week starting with Wise Wellness. She's going to be leading our community cultivation. And so I'm very excited about that. And then I would say that Nori, I'll shout out to Nori a little bit, that this is her final week in working with us directly on Wise Wellness Guild, but she's going to embark on her sober curious roasted not toasted journey more overtly, and really leaning into that and following her purpose and journey, because it's very uniquely hers. So I'm very excited for her on that.
Thanks, Stevie.
Yeah.
I'll still attend these though, because they're great.
Yeah, of course you will. All right. Awesome. Well, if that's all, then thank you so much, everybody, for joining today, Wise Wellness Guild, on Wise Women Wednesdays. And stay tuned to learn more about how we're going to continue to partner with Morgan, and for upcoming events. Next Wednesday, we will have another Wise Women Wednesday, where we are going to be speaking with Maggie from some of her DBT and CBT background on acceptance versus change. And we're going to be chatting a little bit about boundaries, and how no is a complete sentence, and how we are empowering ourselves to kind of create space so we can continue to invest in ourselves. So thank you so much. Have a great rest of your week, y'all, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.